Fat Karen tried to sell fake evidence in court. Judge Judy's savage reply went viral and left everyone speechless. But what happened next will shock you to your core, because this wasn't just about fake documents. This was about a criminal mastermind who had been running an underground evidence-for-hire empire that had corrupted dozens of court cases across 3 states. And Judge Judy was about to expose the entire operation live on television. Before we dive into this incredible case, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love seeing where my viewers are around the world. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss more unbelievable cases like this one. Now, sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. The courtroom of Judge Judy Files became ground zero for the most explosive legal scandal in daytime television history when Rebecca Martinez, a 47-year-old self-proclaimed legal consultant from Newark, New Jersey, walked into that legendary courtroom carrying what she believed was her ticket to victory. Standing 5 feet 4 inches with bleached blonde hair styled in the classic Karen bob, wearing a bedazzled sweater that screamed desperation and clutching a leather briefcase like it contained the crown jewels, Rebecca had no idea she was about to become the most infamous defendant in Judge Judy's 25-year career. The case seemed routine on the surface. A rental dispute worth $3,000 where Rebecca claimed her former landlord had destroyed her property and refused to return her security deposit. But hidden inside that briefcase was evidence so outrageously fake, so poorly constructed, and so obviously fraudulent that it would trigger a chain reaction, exposing Rebecca's secret business. For the past 2 years, she had been operating from a dingy office above a pizza shop, creating customized fake evidence for desperate litigants willing to pay $500 per document. Rental agreements, business contracts, text message screenshots, even fake photographs. Rebecca's underground empire had poisoned the wells of justice, and she had grown so confident in her scheme that she actually brought samples to court to sell to other litigants in the waiting area. Judge Judy's response was so savage, so perfectly delivered, and so utterly devastating that within 6 hours of the episode airing, the clip had exploded across every social media platform on Earth. The hashtag Judge Judy Destroys Karen accumulated over 15 million views in the first day alone, spawning thousands of reaction videos, memes, and remix compilations that turned Rebecca's humiliation into internet legend. But the viral moment was just the beginning, because what Judge Judy uncovered in that courtroom would lead to federal investigations, multiple arrests, and the unraveling of a fraud network that had tentacles reaching into courthouses from New York to Florida. The stakes couldn't have been higher. This wasn't just about one woman's desperate attempt to win a small claims case. It was about the integrity of the entire justice system, the power of truth over deception, and one legendary judge's ability to spot a con artist from across the room and destroy them with nothing but words. Rebecca Martinez thought she was walking into a television studio to collect $3,000. Instead, she was about to face the legal equivalent of a public execution, broadcast to millions of viewers who would witness Judge Judy deliver the most brutal takedown in courtroom television history. A moment so perfect and so savage that it would be remembered as the day justice got its revenge on fraud. Rebecca Martinez strutted into Judge Judy's courtroom with the arrogance of someone who believed she had cracked the code of television justice. Her bleached blonde hair was teased into a gravity-defying helmet that could survive a hurricane, and her hot pink acrylic nails clicked against her designer knockoff purse with each dramatic gesture. She wore a bedazzled sweater covered in rhinestone butterflies that caught the studio lights like a disco ball, paired with leopard print leggings that screamed, "I demand to speak to your manager," from across the room. But it was her eyes that told the real story, darting between her briefcase and the cameras with the calculating look of someone who thought they were about to pull off the con of the century. The case file revealed what should have been a straightforward landlord-tenant dispute. Rebecca claimed her former landlord, Maria Santos, had illegally entered her apartment, destroyed $5,000 worth of personal property, and refused to return her $3,000 security deposit. Maria, a soft-spoken woman in her 60s who owned a small duplex in Newark, sat quietly at the defendant's table, occasionally shaking her head in disbelief at Rebecca's increasingly elaborate claims. According to Rebecca's version of events, Maria had deliberately flooded the apartment, stolen Rebecca's jewelry collection, and then changed the locks without notice, forcing Rebecca to live in her car for 2 weeks. But Rebecca's confidence wasn't just built on lies, it was built on what she considered to be bulletproof evidence. Inside her leather briefcase, organized in color-coded folders like a twisted filing system, were documents that would make even the most gullible person suspicious. There were rental agreements with Maria's signature that looked suspiciously fresh despite being supposedly 2 years old, text message screenshots with timestamps that didn't match the claimed dates, and photographs of water damage that appeared to be taken in a completely different apartment. Rebecca had even created fake bank statements showing the security deposit payment, complete with forged transaction codes that any financial expert could spot as fraudulent within seconds. What Judge Judy didn't know yet was that Rebecca had turned document forgery into a thriving business. Operating from a cramped office above Tony's Pizza Palace on Broad Street, she had spent the past 2 years building what she called her legal solutions enterprise. For $500, desperate litigants could purchase customized evidence packages tailored to their specific cases. Need proof of a rental agreement? Rebecca had templates. Require fake text message conversations? She had software for that. Want photographs of property damage? Her collection of stock images was extensive. She even offered premium packages for $1,000 that included coaching sessions on how to present fake evidence convincingly in court. Rebecca's clientele ranged from small-time scam artists to genuinely desperate people who felt the legal system had failed them. She advertised through word of mouth and cryptic Craigslist posts, promising guaranteed wins in small claims court. Her success rate was impressive because most television judges dealt with cases so quickly that detailed evidence examination was rare. Rebecca had studied hundreds of court shows, analyzing successful presentations and identifying weaknesses in the system. She knew exactly how much fake evidence was enough to seem credible without appearing suspicious. The morning of her Judge Judy appearance, Rebecca had made a fatal error that would expose her entire operation. Arriving at the courthouse 3 hours early, she had set up shop in the waiting area like a vendor at a flea market. With her briefcase open and sample documents spread across a bench, she approached other nervous litigants with the confidence of a seasoned salesperson. For $300, she offered last-minute evidence packages guaranteed to strengthen their cases. 2 desperate plaintiffs had actually purchased her services, not realizing that court security cameras were recording every transaction. Rebecca's biggest mistake was underestimating Judge Judy Files. While other television judges might rely on dramatic flair and entertainment value, Judge Judy had built her reputation on decades of real legal experience and an almost supernatural ability to detect deception. Her courtroom wasn't just a television set. It was a laboratory where lies went to die under the intense scrutiny of someone who had seen every trick in the book. Rebecca thought she was facing a TV personality who would be impressed by her carefully crafted evidence. Instead, she was about to encounter a legal predator who could smell fraud from across the room and had the verbal skills to dissect a con artist with surgical precision. The stage was set for the most epic courtroom destruction in television history, and Rebecca Martinez had no idea she was walking into a trap that would destroy not just her case, but her entire criminal enterprise. Rebecca Martinez opened her briefcase with the theatrical flair of a magician revealing their greatest trick. Her hot pink nails drummed against the leather as she extracted her first piece of fake evidence, a rental agreement that she claimed proved Maria Santos had violated their contract. With exaggerated hand gestures and a voice dripping with false sincerity, Rebecca explained how this document showed Maria's illegal behavior, completely unaware that Judge Judy's razor-sharp eyes were already detecting the obvious inconsistencies that would seal her fate. Judge Judy leaned forward in her chair, her legendary skeptical expression beginning to form as she examined the paperwork. The document that Rebecca claimed was 2 years old looked suspiciously crisp, with printer marks so fresh they practically screamed forgery. The font was wrong, the paper quality was modern, and the signature looked like it had been traced by someone wearing mittens. But Judge Judy said nothing yet, allowing Rebecca to dig her own grave deeper with each confident lie. Rebecca then produced her crown jewel evidence, a series of text message screenshots that she insisted prove Maria had threatened to destroy her property. She held up her phone with triumph, pointing to conversations that any tech-savvy teenager could spot as fabricated. The timestamps didn't match, the message formatting was inconsistent, and the contact name had clearly been edited. Rebecca's voice rose with fake indignation as she read the alleged threats aloud, completely oblivious to Judge Judy's growing suspicion. The final nail in Rebecca's coffin came when she presented photographs of the supposed water damage to her apartment. Judge Judy's eyes narrowed as she studied images that were obviously taken in different locations, with lighting and angles that didn't match Rebecca's supposed apartment layout. But the most damning evidence was yet to come, because during this entire presentation, a court officer was receiving a devastating report about Rebecca's activities in the courthouse waiting area that would transform this simple rental dispute into a federal crime investigation. Judge Judy's demeanor shifted like a storm cloud rolling in as she set down Rebecca's fake documents with the deliberate precision of a surgeon preparing for operation. The courtroom fell silent as she fixed her penetrating stare on Rebecca, her voice dropping to that unmistakable tone that had struck fear into the hearts of liars for over 2 decades. "Where exactly did you get these documents, Miss Martinez?" she asked, each word carefully measured and loaded with the promise of destruction. Rebecca's confident facade began to crack like cheap makeup under stage lights. Her voice trembled slightly as she launched into an increasingly elaborate explanation about keeping meticulous records and storing everything in fireproof safes. But with each word, her story became more convoluted, shifting from claiming she had originals to admitting they were copies, then desperately insisting that Maria had somehow switched the real documents with fakes. Her hands shook as she gestured wildly, hot pink nails catching the light like warning signals of her impending doom. Judge Judy called for a brief recess, and what happened next would become the stuff of courtroom legend. Court security presented her with surveillance footage from the courthouse waiting area that morning, showing Rebecca conducting what could only be described as a mobile fraud operation. The grainy video revealed her approaching nervous litigants with her briefcase open, displaying sample documents like a street vendor selling counterfeit designer bags. 3 separate transactions were captured on camera, with Rebecca accepting cash payments and handing over manila envelopes containing freshly printed evidence packages. But the most devastating revelation came when security searched Rebecca's briefcase during the recess. Hidden beneath her fake rental documents were templates, price lists, and business cards advertising Legal Solutions Enterprise guaranteed court success. There were blank rental agreements with multiple signature samples, software printouts showing how to create fake text message screenshots, and most damning of all, a handwritten ledger documenting over 60 transactions spanning 2 years. Each entry detailed the client's name, case type, evidence purchased, and payment received, creating an indisputable record of Rebecca's criminal enterprise that would soon have federal investigators salivating at the scope of her fraud operation. Judge Judy returned to the bench with the focused intensity of a predator who had cornered her prey, clutching Rebecca's fake documents in one hand and the damning business ledger in the other. The courtroom atmosphere was electric with anticipation as she slowly placed the evidence on her desk, her movements deliberate and theatrical. Rebecca sat frozen in her chair, her bleached blonde hair slightly disheveled from nervous fidgeting, finally beginning to comprehend that her elaborate scheme was about to implode spectacularly on national television. What happened next became the most savage judicial takedown in courtroom history. Judge Judy looked directly into Rebecca's terrified eyes and delivered the verbal execution that would be replayed millions of times across every social media platform on Earth. "Miss Martinez," she began, her voice dripping with barely controlled fury, "in my 25 years on this bench, I have seen pathological liars, manipulative con artists, and delusional criminals, but never have I encountered someone stupid enough to run a document forgery business and then bring samples to sell in MY courthouse while appearing as a defendant in MY courtroom. Rebecca's mouth fell open in shock as Judge Judy continued her relentless assault. You didn't just lie to me. You didn't just insult my intelligence with these kindergarten-level forgeries. You actually had the unmitigated audacity to think you could turn my courthouse into your personal criminal marketplace. Judge Judy held up the business ledger with theatrical disgust. Legal Solutions Enterprise? The only solution you've created is a one-way ticket to federal prison. You absolute moron. The courtroom audience gasped audibly as Judge Judy's verbal decimation reached nuclear levels. This case is dismissed. Your counterclaim is denied, and you owe Ms. Santos $3,000 for wasting her time with your pathetic criminal enterprise. But Judge Judy wasn't finished destroying Rebecca's life. She leaned forward with the predatory smile that had become her trademark. And Miss Martinez, I'm personally calling the district attorney's office, the FBI's white-collar crime division, and every courthouse security department in a 3-state radius to make sure your little fraud operation becomes a federal investigation. Rebecca's face cycled through every emotion possible, from confusion to rage to the dawning horror of realizing her entire criminal empire was collapsing live on television. She tried to speak, stammering about unfair treatment and biased judges, but Judge Judy silenced her with one final devastating blow. The only thing fake in this courtroom besides your evidence is your victim act. You're not a small-time scammer. You're a career criminal who corrupted the justice system for profit, and now justice is going to corrupt your freedom for the next 5 to 10 years. The audience erupted in barely contained applause as Rebecca sat in stunned silence. Her criminal career destroyed by the most legendary judicial beatdown ever captured on camera. The courtroom security guards moved with swift efficiency as Rebecca Martinez launched into a meltdown that would have made even the most entitled Karen proud. Her voice reached that familiar shriek that could shatter glass as she demanded to speak to Judge Judy's supervisor, apparently forgetting that she had just been verbally executed by the highest authority in daytime television. "This is discrimination," she screamed, her bedazzled sweater catching the studio lights as she flailed her arms dramatically. "I want to speak to the manager of this court. This is totally unfair, and I'm going to sue everybody." Security footage captured every moment of her spectacular exit as she was escorted from the courtroom, still clutching her now worthless briefcase and shouting threats about lawsuits and conspiracy theories. The real-world consequences began immediately after filming wrapped. Within hours, Judge Judy's producers had forwarded all evidence to the Newark District Attorney's Office, triggering a federal investigation that would unravel Rebecca's entire criminal network. FBI agents raided her office above Tony's Pizza Palace that same evening, seizing computers filled with evidence templates, client lists documenting over 80 victims, and bank records showing she had generated more than $40,000 from her fraud operation. The investigation revealed that Rebecca's fake evidence had potentially corrupted dozens of legitimate court cases across New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania. But it was the social media explosion that truly destroyed Rebecca's life in real time. Within 6 hours of the episode airing, clips of Judge Judy's savage takedown had accumulated over 15 million views across TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. The hashtag Judge Judy Destroys Karen became the #1 trending topic worldwide, with users creating remix videos, reaction compilations, and meme montages that turned Rebecca's humiliation into internet comedy gold. Her shocked facial expressions became instant meme templates, with captions like, "When you try to scam Judge Judy," and "That moment you realize you're going to federal prison." Rebecca's attempts at damage control only made her situation exponentially worse. She created a series of rambling Facebook videos defending her actions, claiming she was the victim of a judicial conspiracy and that Judge Judy had treated her unfairly. Each video received thousands of comments mocking her delusions, with users sharing clips of her courtroom meltdown and tagging law enforcement agencies. Her LinkedIn profile, which had previously advertised her legal solutions enterprise, was flooded with sarcastic recommendations praising her creativity in document forgery and fraud innovation. The legal hammer fell hard and fast. Rebecca was arrested 3 weeks later on federal charges of mail fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy to obstruct justice. Her bond was set at $50,000, which she couldn't afford after her assets were frozen during the investigation. Local news stations covered her perp walk extensively, with reporters noting the irony of someone who had sold fake evidence being arrested based on evidence she had voluntarily brought to national television. The woman who thought she could outsmart the justice system had instead handed prosecutors a gift-wrapped federal case that would send her to prison for the next 7 years. The Rebecca Martinez case became more than just a viral moment. It evolved into a cultural phenomenon that fundamentally changed how America viewed both courtroom justice and the consequences of fraud in the digital age. Legal experts from Harvard to Yale began using the episode as a teaching tool, demonstrating how criminal arrogance and technological overconfidence could lead to spectacular public downfall. The phrase, "you absolute moron," became part of internet lexicon, used whenever someone attempted obvious deception and failed miserably. Judge Judy's surgical destruction of Rebecca wasn't just entertainment. It was a masterclass in judicial authority that reminded millions of viewers why truth always prevails over elaborate lies. The ripple effects of Rebecca's exposure reached far beyond her personal destruction. Court systems nationwide implemented enhanced document verification procedures and increased security measures in courthouse waiting areas after learning how easily she had operated her fraud business under their noses. The Legal Solutions Enterprise investigation led to the discovery of similar operations in 12 other states, with federal agents using Rebecca's client list and business model to track down a network of document forgers who had been corrupting small claims courts for years. Her downfall triggered the largest court fraud investigation in American history, resulting in 43 arrests and the recovery of over $2 million in fraudulent claims. Judge Judy's handling of the case elevated her legendary status to mythical proportions. Late-night talk show hosts dedicated entire segments to her verbal destruction of Rebecca, with celebrities attempting to recreate her devastating delivery and failing to capture the perfect blend of fury and judicial authority that made the moment so powerful. The episode won 3 Emmy nominations and was voted the greatest courtroom moment in television history by Entertainment Weekly. Judge Judy received personal thank you letters from judges across the country who praised her for defending the integrity of the judicial system against criminal exploitation. The cultural impact extended beyond legal circles into popular psychology and social media behavior. The case became a cautionary tale about the dangers of overconfidence and fraudulent schemes, with business schools using Rebecca's spectacular failure as an example of how criminal enterprises inevitably collapse under their own complexity. Social media platforms began implementing stricter policies about evidence tampering and document fraud after the viral nature of Rebecca's downfall demonstrated how quickly justice could be delivered through public exposure. 5 years later, clips from the episode continue to circulate with millions of new viewers discovering Judge Judy's legendary takedown annually. Rebecca Martinez, now serving her 7-year federal sentence, has become an unwitting symbol of what happens when criminal stupidity meets judicial brilliance. Her prison interviews, where she still maintains her innocence despite overwhelming evidence, have become additional meme content proving that some people never learn from their mistakes. The ultimate lesson transcends entertainment value and speaks to fundamental truths about justice, accountability, and the power of truth in an age of deception. Judge Judy's destruction of Rebecca Martinez proved that no matter how elaborate the scheme, how confident the criminal, or how sophisticated the fraud, authentic authority backed by decades of experience can demolish lies with nothing but words and wisdom. In Judge Judy's courtroom, and in life itself, the truth doesn't just set you free, it obliterates those who dare to challenge it with criminal deception.